Okay, so hello and welcome to session one. I'm so happy to have everybody here today. I'm just going to change my view. Okay, so many of you here were just with us in the first session, and that was just kind of our overview of, yes, we do ask you to come from meeting to meeting, and yes, I will have vouchers for all of you. Again, I'll drop those forms in to request your vouchers in starting in session 3. And right now we're going to get to architecting the intelligent database, advanced T SQL, JSON, and AI-assisted design in SQL Server 2025. Again, I took the beta exam and I found that I was not familiar with the JSON, and that was sort of what was a big part of it, is actually knowing how to call different JSON commands. So let's go through this. So the architect's blueprint from foundation to intelligence. So kind of starting with Act 3 so we'll start at the bottom of this pyramid and work our way up. So Act 1 is the foundation, and sorry, hang on a second. Okay. All right, so let's start at the bottom of this. We've got the foundation, structural design, and specialized tables. So again, just wanting to get a sense of people of how much have you used SQL? How much do you, how free, I'd like to get it to know everybody here. Have you guys and we have a smaller group in this session. So is there something that I can, just have you used and written SQL queries before, if I can get sort of a reaction or show of hands on that one? Or is this yeah, so I want to just know, who here has, yes, okay, good. Got people who are, what happened to my slides? I've written some like DML, etc. Excellent. My slides just disappeared. I'm looking for my slides just went away. All right. Okay, so my new one is coming together. Yeah, I don't know why my slides went off, but I'm pulling them back up.
Huh?
Hello. Okay. Sorry, my slides just totally disappeared. Now they're back. Okay. We were just talking about the blueprint. The processing engine, advanced T SQL, JSON, and programmability. And then the third is the smart developer, AI assisted tooling, and MCP. So that's kind of how all of them fit together. So basically, yeah, this exam is not only testing your knowledge of uh, SQL, which they do, which kind of is the foundation of it. So there's, like I said, definitely learning resources, and we'll absolutely share those. So if you don't have practice writing SQL or SQL, you can get that practice. So it's pretty straightforward, but it helps you to have sort of that map of what data is where and how that data all connects to each other, and whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-many also kind of matters. And then you learn the things, including sort of the joins, the left join, the right join, the inner join, the outer join, and kind of understanding what that means and what you're putting together when you sort of merge two different tables. So those are things to practice if you've not worked with that before, because those are the foundational levels. So part of it is making sure, like I said, the first level is understanding how to connect the tables and work with SQL servers that house your tables. The second one is getting to know the commands of how to query the database that you've put together and learning how to use the JSON, the programmability. And then the third, you're going to be connecting this to tools. So whether it's the APIs and the MCPs, so to give your models more context. So selecting the structural foundation, the architect decision tree, point in time historical content for AI trend analysis. So just the word temporal means time. So and then looking at the workload requirement, zero latency, hot path data processing in memory tables. So this is another thing is understanding kind of, where is the memory? Is it something that it's there, or it has to be, so where does it live? Is it right there, sort of a hot data processing, or is it historical context, historical data? And then cryptographic verification and append-only trust. So ledger tables, knowing who's changing what, or anything that has to, when you're working with data, this is why I go back to the security piece of it, making sure everything, is it encrypted? Is it row level security? All of those things that, um, or is it masked? But anyways, your verification and append-only trust. So you have ledger tables, modeling complex many-to-many entity relationships. That's where you have your graph tables. And somebody is taking control of the screen and removing my slide presentation. Not sure what's happening or why that's happening. Okay, so we're talking about, so there's terms you should know: ledger tables, graph tables, external tables. Graph tables are the modeling complex many-to-many entity relationships, and the external tables are querying blob and S3 data without physical movement. So these are kind of just, like I said, as you're looking at this, like a lot of what we're referring to is just kind of introducing you to terms and concepts that you'll start seeing in the study materials that you look at. So to know, the difference between ledger tables, graph tables, and external tables. And then table topology matrix, aligning storage with modern workflows. So again, as you look at these different types of tables, so knowing your table type: temporal, ledger, graph, in-memory, and external, and then understand the primary mechanism. So with temporal, and then the ideal use case and the AI readiness. So now I'll kind of read it across. So temporal, system versioned history. Ideal use case, time travel analysis and auditing, and AI readiness, historical context modeling. Ledger, blockchain-inspired hash chains, high trust, financial compliance, and the AI readiness, preventing model drift via data integrity. So as we know, I spend half my day fighting with AI because sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it gets it wrong. So ledger is really important, that you're not going to have hallucinations, especially when it comes to high trust, financial, or compliance data. So that ledger, everybody knows kind of who's touched it, when, and what was changed, and that is handed down. And then graph, node, and edge relationships. I'm gonna go ahead and mute people and keep our audio clean. Okay. Graph is node and edge relationships, which is ideal use case is social networks, fraud detection, and the AI readiness is relationship traversal via match operator. The in-memory, and this is kind of what I was leaning into before, was the RAM optimized structures. So this is for high throughput ingestion and real-time AI telemetry processing. So in memory, you just need it right there. It's kind of hot data that you're working with, where external is better for virtualization via REST or Polybase, and the ideal use case is data lake ingestion, and the AR readiness is querying unstructured blob storage. So that's kind of the topology of it. So processing engine, optimizing server-side logic. So views, virtual abstraction layer, best practice, use with scheme binding to prevent base table drift, use index views for heavy reading aggregations, never nest greater than 2 levels deep. Stored procedures, compiled parameter-driven CRUD logic, watch for parameter sniffing, use option recompile, encapsulate complex logic to reduce network round trips. Functions, scalar, and TVF, reusable computational logic. Best practice, favor inline table value functions over multi-statement to avoid performance bottlenecks. And triggers, DML, DDL, automated event responses. Best practice, keep logic strictly minimal, use temporal tables instead of the goal of purely auditing. Never rely on trigger firing order. And the native bridge, relational sets to JSON payloads. So this, again, was my weakest link, but to really make sure that you fully understand and are prepared to to create queries using JSON. That's a big part of this exam is JSON object, JSON array aggregate, open JSON, and JSON value. And the best way to use these and understand these is looking and going through some of those Microsoft Learn modules and any other practice you can get using the JSON and kind of understanding what each of those operations does will help you extraordinarily on the exam because that will be there. So engine optimization, the new native JSON data type utilizes an optimized binary format, allowing up to 2 gigabytes per row with IS-JSON validation. But yeah, the big takeaway here is JSON and all of these sort of JSON commands are absolutely on the exam. So modern search spectrum from exact match to semantic intent. So there's an exact word match. Mechanisms like full text search. Use case is simple filtering, precise product IDs. Pattern recognition. The mechanism is regular expression underscore like, and then regex underscore substring. And so use case extract emails, standardizing phone formats, and then typo tolerant fuzzy. Now we're getting to sort of fuzzy logic. So the distance metric is versus sort of similarity score. Word brings it to another word. So mechanism edit distance, Jarrow underscore Winkler. So use case messy user input, deduplication, and name variations. So you've got, yeah, 3 different versions of it, and now you can sort of simplify it and have like one clean version. So it kind of puts it together. And then semantic intent. Now you've got, this is where you get into your vectors, and we're going to have a whole session on vectors. So the mechanism is vector underscore search, AI generate embeddings, and understanding meaning, context, and symptoms, synonyms. And so vectors kind of give us like words and like concepts. And then I saw something come into the chat, but I think it's for another session. Okay. So yeah, so we get, again, you get from exact words, pattern recognition, typo tolerant, fuzzy, to semantic. And so you get increasing contextual complexity as we work through the data types and data matching. And then regex, engine map, precise data cleaning. So regex replace, strip structural noise. Regex split to table, splits delimiting string into relational rows. And so an example of this is user j.doe at corp.net and their phone number. And so the regex substring extracts precise patterns. And so it can see kind of what the email is. The regex replace can sort of see what the front name is. And the regex split to table is using it for like the area code, the phone number here, and regex underscore instruction regex count tracks start positions and matches frequency. So if you have data now, you can sort of like use it to parse the information in great detail to get what you want to get to create, just to get everything to be clean. Because as we know in data, things do not come out to us very clean, and cleaning is a huge, huge part of working with data. I know my professors would often say when we were working with different data sets, like, this is the cleanest you will ever work with. And then I had an internship with a federal government agency, and I got to use data in the wild and spent a lot of time cleaning data. So it's this is all part of helping you with that process. And then the fuzzy match continuum, typo tolerant entity resolution. So now you've got Jonathan with an O versus Jonathan with an A. And that's kind of this fuzzy. So you're asking it to look for Jonathan's, but might be spelled differently. So the absolute difference is edit underscore distance returns an integer representing an exact number of insertions, deletions, substitutions, or transpositions needed to match. And then the algorithmic score, Jarrow underscore Winkler underscore similarity, returns a score from 0, no match, to 100, full match, giving higher preference to strings that match perfectly at the beginning for prefix length. So this is kind of how you kind of think in terms of, what an example of fuzzy logic is, where you're looking for something, but it's not going to be that exact match. And then SQL AI synergy, a bidirectional intelligence loop. So we build intelligent databases, and versus intelligent agents help us build them. So, and in the middle of this is the SP invoke external REST endpoint. So advanced T SQL, native JSON, vector embeddings, and graph matching are the exact mechanisms required to prepare, chunk, and serve high quality data to external AI models. And this kind of goes back to that concept of, you have to have the AI can help us a lot, but it works with the data that we have. And so us being able to also use AI to clean and prepare that data and get it to be as good as it needs to be for the AI to be optimized is kind of part of the process. So we also have AI tools. We have generative AI, LLMs, copilots, as the exact mechanisms developers use to write complex T SQL, debug, regex, and optimize query plans at unprecedented speeds. So this is where kind of it works together. So we're building the intelligent databases, but we're also using AI in multiple places for this. Actually, here's another thing to use AI. Like, I love, and as many of us do, we use AI all the time. And I do talk about different and we will throughout the session talk about different learning tools that you can use. Whether you're using Microsoft Learn, whether you're using kind of the LinkedIn Learn, or O'Reilly Media, if you have access to those, or even things you find on YouTube, or things you kind of just pull from the internet. Or again, we're going to share many things with you here today. So when you have that kind of learning, giving that to your AI, especially if you have one of those paid accounts where you can add your paperclip and you can give it the context, or especially as a student, like you'll see in my slides I made with Notebook LM, where I had it go through all of the training materials and help me create the presentation. So Notebook LM can be really, really good. It can create flashcards for you. It can create presentations for you. It can, but also you can just use it in lots of ways to help you practice writing queries, just as you begin. Now, of course, if you're pulling or help you build out your model and your schema, and then of course it's even better if you have, set up a SQL server and actually build something. That's going to be the fastest, easiest way for you to learn it and get to learn it. So Smart Developer, equipping the AI Copilot. The interfaces GitHub Copilot in SSMS 22 and Copilot in Fabric. And then, of course, adding security guardrails. So here we've got the context create and what's in that word? Context, SQL models, variables, select. Okay, so yeah, your typical SQL query is going to be select and the name from table name, join table, and then join to another table, join to another, where, then you give it a condition and job equals and then group by name and then order by strings length. So it's like it's very simple and it's very complex at the same time. Like once you learn how to write these queries, and you get them to do what you want them to do, it, you'll it it becomes second nature. But if you're seeing it for the first time, it can be a little confusing. But it does follow a very clear formula, and it just takes that practice to just um, get it to do what you want it to do. So basically, you're basically saying, what column you're selecting, from what table you're selecting it from, and then how you're joining these tables, how you want it grouped by, and what your sort of conditions or limiting factors are, because you're not looking for all the data, you're looking for data that meets certain criteria. So the context challenge, copilots hallucinate without context. The solution is providing schema context through copilot instruction files and live metadata connections. And then adding the security guardrails, respect local database permissions natively. AI must operate under strict role-based access controls, and generate SQL must always be reviewed before production. So, just always always have human in the loop on this. And one of the other things I would sort of say is RBAC is a very common term in cybersecurity. And so just to kind of distinguish that for those who aren't familiar with RBAC, so there's IAM, your identity access management, and that is you. So who you are, or that is the single person, is the identity access management. So when you do your multi-factor authentication, you're authenticating you. Or in a system, if they've given you particular access, then that's kind of, again, that identity access management. Role-based is not identifying an individual, it's just identifying anybody in that role. So you could say, this is for anybody in accounting, or you could say, this is for anybody in HR, or you could say, this is specifically for directors in a particular department versus admin in a particular department. And so it basically on whoever sits in that role is who is the person who would have access to that data. So RBAC and IAM are definitely terms that, oh, thank you, Ken. Okay. You'll start to know. And I think a lot of this, like I said, I feel like I see a lot of these things being very siloed. And my studies have taken me, again, well, I started with urban planning, and that's when I sort of fell in love with the data and the data visualization. And that led me into GIS, and then that led me into geospatial intelligence, which then led me into law and cybersecurity. And I feel like I see these being so siloed, and I'm like, yeah, but they're all the same. Like if you do cybersecurity, you're working with data, and KQL queries are part of cybersecurity as much as they are about data science. So it definitely is an opportunity for us to, sort of break down some of these silos. And I think it's really important for all of us to be, and you'll see these on the exams as well, as these general cybersecurity concepts are embedded into that. So everything from zero trust to the IAM and the RBAC. Just as I'm sort of beginning my certification sort of credential stack, I'll just give an example for two of the exams I took kind of early last year, and or maybe even before that. Anyways, they were the Google Digital Cloud Leader and the ISC squared, or ISC2, certified in cybersecurity. And certified in cybersecurity, a third of that exam was cloud. And for digital cloud leader, a third of that exam was security. So I come back to saying, like, we all should have and know know the security concepts as we proceed, especially when you're working with data, because to me, knowing security and governance, super important because, and you will see questions about row-level security, about encryption and masking of data. Such a fascinating thing that when you are walking on a path and with time you end up on a different destination. Yes, I agree with that. It's interesting. I was in grad school for 5 years. I just literally graduated on Friday after 5 years. And it's a little disorienting because I'm like, oh, what do I do now? And I am now sort of in the process of, I've got two things. One, I'm applying for jobs, and two, I just already have so many activities and things that I'm working on and things that keep me in part of my community and just very active. So I'm kind of enjoying kind of figuring out, what job both can I do and lets me be wholly who I am and bring my whole self to the role. And so that's kind of the process that I'm in right now. But yeah, it has been interesting to sort of pull that thread because I was finding that I was putting together government with data. And that led me to cybersecurity. I was just like, you can't do data without understanding the basics of cybersecurity. It's all together. And then, of course, AI is everywhere. Like we're all here to say, how do we do AI better? And we know that it can do some amazing things, but we also know that it hallucinates and it needs grounding and it needs context and it needs review and it needs human in the loop. And so one of the things you all should be thinking about is AI governance and what are the rules and the protocols and how are you deploying AI? And I think it's actually really important to think about. And I think this is where going back to like my geospatial database course is we kind of wrote it down, whether you're writing it down on a digital paper or pen and paper, is what does it look like when you're building out your database? What connects to what? What's the primary key? What's the foreign key? How do all of these spreadsheets can connect and what data is where. And that is part of it. But I think as we're applying AI, you also kind of want to write down, again, starting on paper or digitally, what are the rules of how you're deploying AI? What are your guardrails? What are your safeguards? How are you checking that it's doing what it needs to do and it's not that your prompts and your context are appropriate, or does it need more? And is it getting the result? And how and when do you check it? And also making sure those machine identities don't have unlimited access forever, and that you have a plan. That was actually another thing working with data, understanding there's a data life cycle. You don't keep things forever. You don't just store them in the attic or the basement. You actually want to know at what point do you, is it is it hot data that you're using? Is it something that you can now sort of put into storage? Is it something that's archived? And then at a certain point, you actually destruct the data. And to understand that data lifecycle and your plan for the data. So as you're working with AI, it's really important to think about whether it's for yourself, your team, your company, to think through what is our AI governance? How are we protecting the data, governing the AI? How do we flag problems? How do we address the problems? How do we make sure everybody's on the same page? So that's really, it's important um, to manage your AI as much as your AI manages you, or all of us at this point. And that brings us to MCP architecture, which again, we're going to do deeper dives today into MCP and a USB-C hub for live data contacts. So you've got the brain, the GitHub Copilot AI client. You've got the hub, the MCP server, so Data API Builder, or DAB, and the peripheral, the Azure SQL database. So you've got the brain sort of asked to generate a query, and it returns the exact schema metadata safely, one would hope. And then two, it reads the schema via the managed identity and executes under authenticated role without exposing raw PII data. So these are other terms that you really need to obviously know when you're working with data. PII is personal identifying information. PHI is personal health information. And wherever in the world you are, you have governing rules. So my cybersecurity degree actually comes from the law school. So I know a lot about GDPR and CCPA, and there's all sorts of data. So there's cybersecurity, but there's also data privacy. They're different. They obviously are both about protecting the data and making sure data is secure. And of course, with cybersecurity, you've got the and data privacy. There's internal and there's external protections for your data. So that's why you get things like row level security. Who can actually see this data? Or with PII or PHI, you're encrypting that data or you're masking that data, so there only parts of the data can be seen, or none of the data can be seen unless someone is authorized to see it. And so all of those things is to know what rules and regulations apply to the data or the data set that you're working with. So for example, if your customers are in California, then you have CCPA, the California Privacy Act. And if you're working with customers in Europe, then you're under GDPR, and you need to understand what the rules are for GDPR. And then with cybersecurity, all companies are required to meet a baseline of effort, because if there is a, a charge against them, of like there's a breach and they get sued for that breach, they want to make sure that they can say, here were the things that we did. We did best practices to ensure the safety of this information, of this data, even if there is a breach and even if that data is exposed. Because if you don't have a track record of what you did to try to safeguard your data, then you can get in trouble and companies can get huge fines. And they can also get both civil and criminal prosecution against them. So that's why all of this actually matters, and it all kind of comes to the data scientists and the data analysts and the database managers as we are here. So that's why I like when I see so many of these things being sort of siloed, I'm like, but they're so interconnected, because uh, as a data scientist, like all of these security concepts actually apply to you. And then I see on the security side, that there's a ton of ways that so much of cybersecurity is logs and data that needs to be analyzed. And there it's all about understanding what's kind of what the baseline is and then what an anomaly is. So you can sort of do that sort of pattern recognition and change detection. But this kind of, gives us a good sort of run through kind of what we're kind of looking at for how AI is definitely uh, expanding kind of what SQL can do and how we can use it and also how we can understand it. So if you've ever had questions about building that database and had questions about what, hold on a second, about uh, one of my speakers is asking me a question. Okay. I have a question. Okay, seems like some people were getting a little lost in our meeting. Okay, so I think that let's take questions. Again, we've got four other really wonderful speakers following up, and in the next 10 minutes, we're gonna jump over to our next session. And I will make sure that, like I said, I'm sharing through the Luma, and just for everybody here, if you have questions where the next session is, it's always in the Luma, and then I always like send you guys a blast between sessions. And I also have resources that I'm actually going to share as we come into the next session, to say that we have, oh, thank you, that are directly provided to us by the Fabric team. If you've never tried Fabric, I definitely encourage you to set up a free trial. It's 14 days. That the challenge with that is I've now gotten to the point where I have a paid account, because you can even do the free trial, but to do certain things, you need to add capacity through Azure, and that capacity is not free. But it can do some pretty amazing things, and you can build your own agents. within Fabric to do a lot of the things we talked about. So session three is when I'm going to start. I'll be dropping the voucher links. You'll get voucher links in sessions 3, 4, and 5, and you'll have those forms. I'm realizing that I can't actually uh, use it in the chat. So obviously we love having you here live, but yeah, everybody's gonna get the link because it's gonna be blasted through Luma because the chat's kind of, like I said, it works for some, but not for all. But yeah, if you have comments or questions, again, I love knowing we just have such a global community, and I absolutely love that. And I just have I love learning and I love sharing what I'm learning. And I just, like I said, I thought it was really cool to see, and I encourage you as well, you know, obviously um, the Excel sheets are kind of the foundations of, what, if you think about like when you write an SQL query, what are you querying? You're actually querying a spreadsheet. And SQL is now super enhanced, and so is Excel. Excel is not the Excel you've ever known before. So encourage everybody not only to get more comfortable in working and doing projects inside of Excel, but seeing how all of this AI enablement is now completely transforming Excel as we've known it. So that's another kind of thing to think about with all of this. Is it's a very exciting time. And one of the things I just want to encourage and celebrate all of you for being here is what we're talking about is absolutely the newest thing that is out there. So you will all have skills that really kind of are going to make you stand out from everybody else because other people don't have them. And I will say that if you are in the Microsoft ecosystem, be aware that there are quite a few exams that are being retired and quite a few new exams that are being um, brought into, brought in. So, for example, like this one is just came out of beta and is now in general availability. So that is something that is exciting to sort of see that you're going to be on the front line of that. I'll also say, just because I did my undergraduate many years ago and then went to work and then came back to grad school. And one of the things I was looking at my university is that data science is now in every single major. There is yeah, so someone's saying 2 of my certifications are going to retire. Yeah, exactly. So pay attention to that when you look at adding other things to your cert stack. Uh, it's all on the internet. If you look for information about an exam that you're thinking about taking, you'll see which ones are sort of scheduled for being retired. So I definitely encourage you to um, stay up on the ones that are that Microsoft is really leaning into. And if you're going to see that most of them are they're really pushing for people to sort of be up to speed on all of these sort of new AI capabilities. Obviously, they want to sell you more Microsoft, and that's okay. So we're all here for it. And yeah, no, it's exciting time. I just gotta say, my own university, there is not a major that does not have a data science course in it. So whether it's biology, criminal justice, urban planning, communications, data science is now ubiquitous. So there's obviously, and I think that's for everybody here. You may think of yourself as someone who is a database manager. You may think of yourself as someone who is a data analyst or a data scientist, uh, or AIML, but you also may just find that you are doing other things that having data science, having cybersecurity, having AI development, is having database management is just super useful to other jobs that you are doing. So to me, none of this is lost. Everything you're learning here, you will apply to any job that you have, even though that job title may or may not have data in the title or database in the title. These are just, to me, super, super useful skills for anything that you're doing and any team that you're on. You will add value by having this knowledge and these skills. So with that, like, really appreciate everybody's time being here today. Midhuna, who's been one of our speakers before and is a fellow Microsoft Student Ambassador, is going to be leading us for session 2. I yield the stage. I'm just here to support and moderate our upcoming sessions. And then we're going to Aradia, who will lead us for session 3. Demir will join us for session 4, and Ladislao will be here for session 5. I also just want to commend all of my speakers because so many of them are not native English speakers, and I have so much admiration for the fact that not, some of them can speak well in 2 languages. Some of them can speak well in several, and to me, that's quite amazing. As an American, I don't have that privilege because we're kind of isolated, and sadly, we don't travel very much. And so I just again want to just kind of honor and celebrate the speakers that we have ahead of us, and we're all like super involved in the Fabric community. So that's another thing I want to sort of invite you that if you're not aware of the Fabric community, to know that it's a really vibrant place that has a lot going on. I have a Fabric user group, which is the Microsoft Fabric Location Intelligence and Security user group. So we're going to do general Fabric topics, but also deeper dives into the geoanalytics and the mapping features, as well as the security and governance layer. And so, yeah, it's the time on any questions, comments, drop them in the chat, raise your hand. I always love to hear from you guys. And I will definitely share a link to the Fabric community, absolutely. And yeah, and there's just a lot. You'll see all the events happening, and there's upcoming data days. They're always doing competitions. There are also there's like a new SQL user group that you can be a part of to give sort of feedback directly to the SQL team at Microsoft. I'm part of the Excel rotations and the Fabric rotations right now, and it's really great because you're dealing directly with the product teams at Microsoft. I've also recently gotten involved in their cybersecurity ones for Entra, Defender, and threat detection. So there's lots of ways to get involved in the community and be part of the community. I spoke on the Microsoft Reactor stage back in April, and then was invited to speak again in June. So excited about sort of being part of that, and I regularly moderate those sessions. So there's tons of ways to get involved in the Microsoft's community. So obviously, if for every student out there, I highly recommend the Microsoft Student Ambassador Program. It's been an incredible program for me. But I also want to say that there's just lots of ways to get involved as a professional as well. And of course, imagine many of you already know about the MVP program for Most Valuable Professional on Microsoft, or it's GDE on the Google Developer Expert side. But there's lots of ways to sort of really deepen your involvement in these ecosystems and get lots of rewards for doing so. So yeah, we are ready to jump into our next session. I thank everybody for being here for this session. And like I said, I turn it over to our other speakers, and excited for myself to kind of moderate and come back into the audience and learn alongside with you. So I will see you all. Just give me 1 second. I will pop our link into the chat for those who have it available, and then I'll go ahead and send out the blast for it as well. So look forward to meeting Maduna in the next session. So hang out 1 second. Okay, I've just dropped that in the chat. And all right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next session.